Okay.
And here we are, everybody. This is a Cougarland podcast with the famous Roxie Urner. And we're here for some exercise tips for you people at home. You think this was going to be about school. Now, Roxie? No, I'm kidding.
10 push-ups, yeah.
10 push-ups. Drop it. Give me 10. Now, I see you involved. You were such into sports. You were very big into being an athlete. How does that play into your life now? Are you a coach? I know you're coaching your daughters, but what else do you do?
I actually, it's funny because when I started, my venture into fitness I was an athlete. That was my thing. I was an athlete. My dad, as you know, and your father coached me also. I was an athlete, and I remember back in 1983, they started aerobics at the fitness center.
Yeah, I remember that.
Remember that? It was in the gym.
Mm-hmm.
And gosh, the clothes that we used to wear back then, holy moly.
The leg warmers, all the good stuff, flash dance.
It was like things up your butt, your legs showing. It was pretty provocative.
Yeah. It was the taboo aerobics taboo. There you go.
So that's how I started. I just got it. I loved, as people might know, I love music and I love dancing. And I just took the music, and working out was just kind of a match for me. So yes, I currently work with a company where I manage, here comes the other one, I manage fitness centers for the military or the government down in DC and other parts of the country. And I also teach fitness, education fitness instructors to get certified. So I'm involved, and it's kind of funny because back in the day, it was just for fun. And it evolved into this big conglomerate program, right? Where now it's a multi-million-dollar industry.
Oh yeah, I worked in the health club business. I owned a mixed martial arts gym, a fighting gym. So I've been around. As much as we try not to be like our dads. Your dad was in charge of things like DYA and stuff, right?
He was the sports director.
Sports director, right?
What happened was back in we're going back. Look at her. She wants to So back in 1976, my father's job, it was actually his MOS. It was in the military. And at that time, I want to say 75 or 76, they changed that job to a government job.
Okay. So he became a GS?
Yeah. So
did he get out, or how did he merge over from, was he an officer or enlisted guy? What did he do?
He was enlisted, so he had gotten out, and actually he did start with DYA because that's where Mr. Marcus was.
Yeah.
And he started there, and then
Marcus Ball. You remember Marcus Ball? It was a version of it's like that ball where you slam ball, whatever, where you hit each other with the ball kind of thing. It's like that movie that.
Oh, you mean dodgeball?
Yeah, but it was Marcus Ball, which was his version.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking Marcus Ball. Yeah, I love dodgeball. That's when you got all your you got in the playground. You're like, I'm getting him. I'm getting her.
Exactly.
Hold on a second, guys. Go ahead. Hey, girls, call the dog. So yeah, but yeah, that was dodgeball. That's when here they come back again. I'm gonna have to share out. Hold on a second, because they're not going to stop.
And there you go. We've interviewed the dogs. They keep coming back. They get something to say. And of course, Roxie is tucking them in, and she'll be back.
They're very needy animals.
Well, it's funny that, I don't know if you thought you were going to end up there, but you fell somewhere in between what my dad does and what your dad does in a way, as did I. I was more on the sales side and building and marketing and all that. And it's like, I thought I'd never own a gym or never be working at a gym. And what a transition, right? I get out of the Navy. I don't know what to do. I'm asking my ex-wife, soon to be, who's that guy at the Lexus? What kind of business is he in? He's in sales. Oh, sales guy. Who's that driving the small Honda Civic? He's not a sales guy. I want to be a sales guy. And sure enough, first it was cars, and then it was health clubs, because I thought I could do health clubs part-time and then go to while I was going to college. Unfortunately, health clubs won because it really required all my time to hit your sales goals every day and sell personal training and all that stuff. So
And I've tried. I remember when we had the summer jobs. Remember the summer jobs?
summer hire, yeah.
Yeah, summer hire. So every summer, we had to work in our house. Our dad would not let us, there was no sleeping in. It was either going to work with him and lining the softball fields, the football fields, cleaning the floors, keeping score. And I remember I was like 13 and I really wanted to be a lifeguard, but I was too young. So my dad was like, you got to get a job. You got to get a job. You're too young. And so he brought home the application, and I had all these different jobs that I could, pick from.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess they had a list, and the list got smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And I remember picking the library, and I was like, oh gosh. And opposite of me. I mean, actually, it did help me a lot. I learned a lot about, things that I needed in high school. But
the Dewey Decimal System. You needed the Dewey Decimal System.
Yes, I used to get upset when people used to put the book in the wrong place. What are you doing?
That's how you build OCD. Work at a library. I'm kidding, but go on.
And I knew then, I'm like, this is too quiet for me. I cannot, so the following year came around. I was still too young. I was 14. And I was like, well, you know what? I see those people outside cutting grass, and it looks like a lot of fun. So I was groundskeeper. Oh my Lord. It was the last week of summer hire, and I had those big cutting wedge, these big plants. And I remember just starting up going, oh, this is easy. We'll try that for 8 hours,
Yeah, you get some good triceps going and working your lats. Oh, well, back to fitness.
I cried. I got home, I'm like, I can't go back to work. My arms are, and my dad, because I was actually working at the, the headquarters. Remember the headquarters where the gym was, and it was right across the NCO club?
Okay. Oh, yeah, I know where it is.
That's where I reported. And so I go in with my dad, and he would just watch me walk to the building. And I was like, I've got one more week. I don't want to. Yeah. I had to finish it up. And I knew then, this is too hard for me too. So the summer hire really kind of led me into something, gave me ideas, and I was able to try different things. I always knew that I wanted to go into fitness. I just didn't know where, right, and how that was going to be. And I got lucky, and I just program manager working in DC. And it's funny because this past summer, we also have a educational company. And I actually did training for Children's Youth Services, and for over 300 participants. We had 4 weeks of a week on. I had Europe, I had Asia, and I had United States. And I had 2 people from Vicenza. It was really cool being part of that. So yeah, I'm still kind of involved with the military. I'm not in it. Right. But it's really nice because I know my heart's there. My heart's there. It was a great life growing up. And
it's interesting because I know that your track was sports. You loved it. You must have had a lot of energy. You love fitness. You saw results. You played a game. You saw results. That was probably just me looking from the outside, right? And me being a coach's son, but I didn't play that much. I'd play football here and there. But that was it. I wasn't really committed like my brother was so much, and like you were. And how many years were you there?
So I grew up, so my sisters went to school in Vicenza.
Okay.
So Denise graduated in 76. So my dad had 4 tours in Italy, in Vicenza. He had one with Denise. Denise was born in New York. Then when he came to Italy, that's where Sandra was born. Sandra was born in Vicenza. Then they came back to the States, went to Maryland. I was born in Aberdeen. And they came back to Italy. That was the 3rd one. And the 4th one was in between my sixth grade year and my eighth grade year. We went back to the States and came back. So I went to first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade. I remember my teachers, Mrs. Colorito, love her. She had such patience with me. Oh my goodness. I was just Mrs. Linden. Do you remember Mrs. Linden?
I do. I do.
Mrs. Nisman. She used to scare me. She was a little short little fireball. She would scare me. Mrs. Kaluza
Mm-hmm.
and Mrs. Wilkie. Mrs. Wilkie, I mean, she was so tall.
I remember her, the tall blonde lady teacher.
And
Very
she
much.
would look down at you, and she was kind, but she just was scary. And then we left. So we left my fifth grade year. But Denise graduated from Vicenza.
Mm-hmm.
And my fifth grade year, that was my sister's senior year. She left her junior year. Sandra was amazing volleyball player and softball player. Both my sisters, I don't know if you knew, they both played professional softball in Europe.
I didn't know they played professional. I knew that they played with the team.
While in high school. And so my sister Sandra went back to the States end of her junior year, beginning, and she lived in Wisconsin. And she went to North High School where my dad went. And she had a scholarship and everything. And so we left that 1978 or 79, I think. We went to Massachusetts, Fort Devens.
Fort Devens. Yeah, a lot of people went through there. I know that Mark Rivera was there one time, maybe Cindy Graff. I'm trying to recall, but that was a place, that was one of, there in Fort Bragg were the two like launching pads back to Vicenza or to Vicenza the first time for some people. Right.
So actually it was in 78 because in 78 was the biggest snowstorm in Boston. It just broke records. And I remember my mom going, "Oh my God, we've got to leave this place." Because we were stuck in the house and I had never seen it. And literally the snow was all the way up to our attic window.
Wow.
I mean, it was, I was like, oh my gosh. Like
it's a beautiful mountain outside. The mountains are moving in. Yeah.
Exactly. So we stayed there for about a year and a half. And then at that time, my dad was trying to get back to Italy, but he got a job. He got a job in Germany. Excuse me. We went to Germany, Heidelberg, and he was still trying to get back to Italy, and he got a job in Saudi Arabia for some time. And then the job opened up. The sports director job opened back up in Vicenza. So I might have my dates mixed up a little bit, because at that time everything was just rolling.
Right.
And I came back my freshman year. So literally I was gone for almost 3 years, you would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Came back my freshman year in 1983. So it was, and I, it's when I left, and I was watching Pinicky, his podcast.
Barry, yeah.
Barry. And I remember when he left, and that it hurt. It's like, gosh, it's all I knew. I mean, Italian was my first language.
Right.
And it's all I knew. And it was really hard for me.
Did you live off post or did you live in Villaggio?
We lived off post. Our first house was, if you left the base and you were going downtown.
Yeah.
Remember the park on the right-hand side?
Yeah.
Just before the hill?
Okay.
So there was a park there. Across the street, there was like two bars, and down that street there was some apartments, and we lived there on the first floor.
Okay.
So I was very young there. I was, but we stayed there till I was, 3 or 4 years old, and then we moved to Villaggio Montegrappa.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we left and then came back, we moved to Marola.
Okay. Is that near the lake? Is that near Lake Marola? Is that where we have that video of everybody partying for their senior year?
I live, yes, exactly. So if you didn't take that right up that hill, you'd keep going straight and you would take the next left. And I lived in that subdivision.
Yeah, you were right near the Rod and Gun Club Lake, basically. That's what Lake Marola was.
Absolutely, I could see it, yes.
Not too far from Villaggio, so your social life could be pretty good. You could always probably catch a ride out of there, or
I
right?
tell my kids, I used to do this a lot.
Did you?
Oh my goodness. If I missed the bus from school, it was either ride my bike or walk, which I would never make it in time. Or I thought,
Riding the bike wasn't bad. I used to ride my bike everywhere.
oh,
I
me
live
too.
what I thought was 10 or 15 miles away. I've since mapped it on Google. I think it was like 3.8, 5, but in kid miles, it was 100, even though I had great cardio, it didn't matter.
I mean, I used
Because
to ride my
you're
bike.
you're bored as a kid. You're like, hurry up, get me there already. Even though someone else
Yes.
would be enjoying the bike, like the
I mean, I rode
Italians.
my bike everywhere. In the summertime when we lived in Villaggio Monte Grappa, um, I used to wear my bathing suit. You're like 6, 7 years old. My mom used to say, here's 500 lire. You're going to get bread and stuff before lunch. And I'd get up at 8 o'clock in the morning, put my bathing suit on and my shorts, and I would just ride my bike around my neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And then at 11:30, I'd go to the bread store, get our bread and milk and whatever my mom wanted, and I'd be back at the house.
It's interesting because
Summertime.
you didn't sit around the house a lot, I would guess, based on your super active lifestyle. You're very active. You're very involved in events, sports, training for, or working, right?
My dad was really, he just he grew up. It's funny because my dad is a family of one. He's the only child, and my mom comes from a family of 20.
Oh, wow.
I know. So my dad was he had a hard upbringing, and he just loved being around people, and he wanted to help people, and sports was just natural to him, and that was his way of communicating for people and with kids, and he really liked it a lot. And I saw how it made me feel,
Mm-hmm.
and I like competition. I think competition is healthy, and so yeah, it brought me great joy and sometimes great sadness. But I always look at the defeat. You look what you did tomorrow. My dad just say, look at today and make tomorrow better. So even as an athlete and as a mom, and
Well,
human being,
that was our internet. That was our social outlet, right? I mean, when you're over there, you don't have 42 channels or 100 channels to go home to. We certainly did, especially living on the economy. Unless I learned to watch Italian television. I learned Italian at 5. So like you, I was there from 5 to 19 pretty consistently. I left for a few months. That was it. But ultimately, I get to watch everybody come and go just like you. How was that part for you to see your friends like circle through every few years? I mean, it develops social skills where you're quick on your feet, unlike anyone else. It's a very unique form of training, even though it wasn't intended to be. You integrate, you socialize, you build rapport quick, you go somewhere, you find your way real fast. I don't think you've probably saw that about you. Said, oh yeah, I have this extra thing I got from over there. You meet new people all the time,
I you know being a military brat, well then, my dad being a government worker, my husband's like, when I tell him I'm going to go to the grocery store, he's like, I'll be right back. He's like, it's going to be 2 hours. I can
right?
talk to anybody. And that helped me, living that lifestyle. It really helped me meet people,
Right.
step out of my box, be in front of a crowd, and feel comfortable in my own shoes. The hard thing was, when you meet, and you could probably attest to this, you meet a good person in your life, a good friend, and they're going to leave, and it feels like just a part of you is leaving with them.
Right.
And back then we didn't have a phone. I mean, we used to go across the street and Jetone, and it was like click. You're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. And not only that, it was a crooked ass coin, so you couldn't just sling them in there like a bunch of quarters, right? And stuff. It wasn't like sliding through there easily. It's like they wanted, like, we don't want anybody to get over on the phone company. We're going to make this hand carved coin with.
Yes, I never understood that. I'm like, why can't I just use? Why do I have to get these coins?
Right.
Because we didn't have a phone, and we got a phone I want to say my end of my junior year. And I remember somebody on the podcast was talking about the clicker on one of your podcasts. We had a clicker too. And my dad used to know what the clickers were. And when you called your friend, it was like, I'll be at your house.
Yeah. You're talking about like it was like the money. It was counting how many minutes you had. It was
Yes, it
ration.
was
It was
like the
ration.
clicker. It would click. And so my dad was like, if you're going to make a call, I know exactly. And you couldn't, I mean, and he had his little notes, and my dad was known for his notes. If you ever saw him, he always had pockets, like, and he never would wear a shirt without a pocket. If it didn't have a pocket up here,
Yeah.
for him to put his little notepad and his pen, he would not buy it and he would not wear it.
Prepaid phone. That was the prepaid phone of the 70s and 80s.
Exactly.
Well, let's say the 80s. Because, I mean, what was it? 12 minutes to call your relatives in the States. Soon you didn't even call them and you saw them every couple of years. Or, whenever the rotation, you go back for a leave period, right? So, yeah, I didn't go back there every summer. Like maybe every 2 or 3 years we went to the States, And yeah, I liked staying in Italy for the summer. It was okay to go back to the States and see all the stuff that you were missing. New TV shows, new music, new commercials, new food, bad food. Bad food.
Oh, I know.
Right?
Oh my God. When we'd go over to see my cousins and my dad, in my sophomore year, we'd go back to the States, and I went to Lake James basketball camp. And when I went there, I went not just for 1 week. I didn't go for two. My dad would put me in for 4 weeks. So I'd go in like, at like 8 and 100 pounds. I'd come out like, because I was there for a whole week. But I remember on the weekends, the family, because I would stay with the owner there, and they would say, "Oh, who's going to take you to a time place?" And I'm like, "Oh, please don't," because they take me, and the food was just horrendous.
Olive Garden. No, I'm kidding. That version of, right?
Yes, it was. And they were infatuated. I mean, everywhere you went in the States, they'd have an Italian restaurant. And it was just like, I really don't want that. I don't know. What is that?
Right. Why are you putting mayonnaise on the pizza? I'm kidding. But you get my point, right?
Oh, exactly. And I just, so when we had family, we had a lot of family come visit us. And when they'd come over, they'd go, now we understand. We're like, yes. You cannot replicate this. This is really good food. So I guess nowadays you can really find some good food in some areas. They've got a lot of families that are Italian in this area in Maryland, where I live, south of Annapolis, Maryland.
It changes though, right? The pizza, like you come from the fork and knife pizza. Now Boston has some pretty dead on Italian tasting pizza near where my brother lives. And I don't know. No, I'm here in North Carolina. It's pretty good, but it's sure as hell ain't Italy. And when you go to California, you'll get something more picante, a little more salsa. They might throw in some Mexican influence with the Italian influence. So it evolves as it goes across the United States. Chicago's got deep dish, but I'm sure you don't eat too much of it based on your exercise life.
Oh, I do.
Is that your secret? Well, is that your secret?
It's my water. Promise.
Pizza juice. Okay. Go ahead.
Well, I just turned 54 a week ago.
You don't look at it at all. You're doing great.
So I kind of had to watch myself. I still teach a lot of classes. I do love eating, but I got to be very mindful because back in your 20s you used to just burn it really quickly. Now it's just I've got young girls. So I try to keep up with them. But if I'm going to go out to eat, I know it's going to be Friday and we're going to do pizza. I kind of watch what I'm eating and
Who did you hang with there? Who was your group of friends? Your go-tos? Some of the
Kelly
people.
Young, Zeta Rosa, Pam Spencer, the Coleys, Holly Fenton, Rosanna Bonamago.
I talked to her. She's doing good. She's like you. You two are still the workout twins, like little superpowers.
She amazes me. She did an Ironman. I mean, I still swim, and I run, but I don't love to run. I mean, I have to run for a purpose.
Right.
You just can't say
there has to be a competition or a prize or some certain outcome. But go on.
for me to go and say, hey, we're gonna go do a 5 mile run, or I'm like, I gotta run doing something, like run and play basketball, run and catching or something. Running is just not my thing.
Frisbee. There you go. That'll keep her happy.
But I follow her on Facebook, and she does like triathletes. I saw one a while back. She's like, yeah, I just completed like 40 miles and I'm going to the pool and then I'm going to go run. I'm thinking, oh my God.
Well, some people are looking at someone's Cadillac going, I can't keep up with Bill Johnson, some hypothetical name. And you're looking at, your thing is, your Facebook outlook is, oh my gosh, you climbed 2 mountains and went jogging for 12 hours? That's insane. So it's different depending where your niche is in life.
Mm-hmm.
So those were your buds, but I think there was probably more, right?
Oh, there's, more. There was more. I mean,
you were there like a little ambassador like me. We kind of had our cliques. We had our little cliques, the people, and then proximity by where you lived, right?
Yes. And actually, I knew a lot of older people too, because all my sister's friends, I kind of knew them. Like Kim Taylor, the Martinis.
I remember the Martinis.
The what is
Tomasinos.
Tomasinos, I knew them, and the Jeromes.
Yep.
So I was like enmeshed in that early on. So I knew a lot of them, the Cohuts. And since my dad coached a lot, when my sister was in high school, he coached the football, he coached the basketball team. So there was like Evans, which he's a general now. I mean, he used to babysit me.
That's another general. How many generals and admirals do we have already?
Evans used to be my babysitter.
Wow.
So all these people I kind of knew, and I was meshed into that very young. And I was the little annoying little sister. They all had nicknames for me. I was never Roxie. They used to call me Pebbles or Gravel. I used to get so mad at that. My sisters, or they would say, oh, you're Denise's sister, you're Sandra's sister. So at that age, when you're like 5, 6, 7, 8, you're like, woo.
Right.
So when you get older, you want to get that stamp for yourself.
Did you go to class in the snow? Because you said you were here to 5th grade.
I did. Oh, I loved it. My sisters went too. That was so much fun. And oh gosh, I forgot who was my roommate. Oh.
Did you have Italian? I had an Italian roommate.
I had an American roommate.
We had it mixed. We had Italian and American. So me and the Italian kid would battle why Italy is better than the States and back and forth. And after the night, he figured out that Italy invented everything, but that was funny. But go on.
I can't remember who. Lisa, oh gosh. Lisa, she's 85. I can't remember her last name.
She's 85 years old? No, I'm kidding.
She graduated with me in 85. So, oh gosh.
I'll have to look that up.
It will come to me. She was my roommate, and we had a lot of fun. I'll be honest, that right there, we grew up so fast. I remember when I started 1st grade, and my mom was working at the PX. Back in the day, those buses was beautiful buses. I mean, there's like luxury buses.
The ones that took us home. We had those like primo limousine buses. Yeah.
Yes. And I remember my mom gave me the key because my sisters would stay after school for sports and all that. And I would go home by myself. You're talking like 6 years old, going in, don't cook, turn the TV on if you wanted to. But all my neighbors, your community were all your moms and dads. Like they were their eyes. They used to, it's very different nowadays.
Yeah, well, there was a culture in common. There's Italian culture, which is very family oriented, and it was more good than bad. I'll say that much.
Oh, absolutely.
And if you look at Italian culture, it's a beautiful thing, even though there's so many people moving there that it's losing some of its culture. But like the United States, we don't have one unified culture. We used to have Happy Days, this is America. Little House on the Prairie, this is America. And then Friends, this is America. It's like all these little shows are supposed to be depicting, but there's no culture at the base. We have holidays, but that's not a culture because people have different religions. different nationalities. Some are more devout to what they do than others, and it's amazing. That's the one thing that I see. So Italy,
Well,
you did have
you
that,
get to
right?
appreciate also because I mean, I remember when I was home by myself, or if I went outside riding my bicycle and I did something wrong, the grandmas used to school you, like, don't you do that. Like, I'm
Hmm.
going to tell your mom. I mean, they were not afraid to tell you, what you did wrong. I think the beautiful thing too was you really get to appreciate family time.
Yep.
And it was a lot, things got done, but things got done a little slower, but things got done. Here it's just like you wake up at 5:30
Blitzkrieg, lightning. Yeah.
and you are just, I hit the ground running, like, you know, my tires to the floor, and I'm just never
Right.
get home until 8 or 9.
Well,
You just
it explains why it was so hard to get you on the podcast. You're dealing with 300-400 people, and I understand that,
I
and I
mean,
get it.
I'm my kids, I feel, since I was an athlete and I saw what it provided for me, um, I we went, I put them into ballet and dance was very expensive, and I thought, I am paying for this little outfit and I got to put makeup on my kid and then
Hmm.
put her on a stage and have her do this little dance. I
Hmm.
was like, oh no. So we did that for a little bit. And then when they were old enough to start the swim team, I got a friend of mine, because you never can teach your kids, you can't teach your children. Your children think you know nothing. Okay. I remember my parents telling me things and I thought, they don't know anything.
Right.
Um, so I told a friend of mine, I said, if you teach my kids just to swim across the pool, that's all I want. And then they're going to do swim team. And I remember when summer came and they were like, oh, you don't want to do the swim team. I says, you have two choices. You could either swim at 8 o'clock in the morning or you can swim at 4 o'clock in the morning. Which time do you want to do?
Hmm.
So I kind of made them, I pushed them at that door. And as they got older, they saw things that they liked to do.
Right.
Currently play soccer. And my oldest just graduated from high school last year.
Congrats.
And she's, it's funny because I wanted her to take a look at Slippery Rock because I really wanted to go there. And she's
Why,
like,
why,
no,
why was that college thrown around? I used to hear Slippery Rock all the
I think,
time. I didn't hear Stanford, Harvard, MIT. I just heard Slippery Rock when I lived in Italy. I don't know. It was
I,
very popular, like a lot of Slippery Rockians, if that's even a word.
yeah, I
Uh,
think it's just, I think Johnny Kohut, for some reason, a lot of Vicenza went there. I know my sister actually, when she graduated, she had a scholarship from Frostburg here in Maryland. And she was like, oh no, she didn't want to go there. We didn't have family or anything like that there. But
mhm.
so I told my daughter, I said, take a look at Slippery Rock. She's like, no, mom, I don't want to, you can't tell your kids anything. So I should have said, don't look at that school. Don't
Right,
look at
right.
it.
Opposite day. Opposite day. Yeah.
But
I don't want you going there. There's too many good-looking guys
I
that
know.
party too much, and they're just crazy. But they go there like, oh, these people are duds. What did I sign up for? But go
You
on.
know, we are so lucky that we grew up in the 80s because we're not labeled now. There's no track record of me. Not that I was a bad kid, but I did push that envelope a little bit.
I don't know.
Um,
I see me being on the farthest on that scale, and that wasn't even far, but is what was bad then. You know what I mean? What was
uh-huh,
perceived? Like, for example, if I smoked hash today, where I lived in California, where I just moved from, you can go order it from your neighbor. Do you have a cup of hashish or marijuana? Yeah, here. It's like, do you have a glass of wine or a cup of sugar or an egg for a bake? It's not demonized. And if you study the story of it, it was propaganda. But since it was, I would have found something else to do if it wasn't that, because I wanted to break some rules. We wanted to find our way by doing these things. And consequently, I don't have a bong in my house. I don't smoke weed. It was a thing to do as a kid. It was like a rite of passage. It didn't connect me to some gateway. You know what I mean?
I
So
think
it's pretty funny.
I think probably I was, having older sisters, I'm able to see things. And when they got in trouble, I was like, ooh, I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know if I want to do that. Well, my sisters pushed that envelope. I mean, I remember one time, and then we had this blue Cadillac. I remember with the white top.
Mm-hmm.
And my sister Denise was supposed to go to a party, supposed to go to somebody's house. But apparently there was a party, and Morris Simmons actually graduated with my sister. He was like a brother of ours. He was at our house every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And he had come over or something, and he mentioned a party, and he's like, no, Denise is at a, and my mom was like, what? And I'll never forget, my mom had put, you know, the sandals you wear now, the Under Armour or the Adidas, you just slip it on, people wear socks with it.
Yeah, yeah. Yep.
So my mom had those on, pulled her white socks up, okay? She had that little flower robe with the little ruffle around her neck. I remember her pulling me into the car, and she had her hair up in rollers with a little cap on. And we went to the party, and I'll never forget, my sister coming down to the steps and in the car and all that. Because my dad was actually, he was gone on duty.
Mm-hmm.
And but I watched my sisters do some things, and they were not bad. We always pushed that envelope. I mean, the things we did is maybe go to a party, skip school. I tried cigarettes. I was like, ugh.
I never saw you over there. You must have done these things individually. But it's funny to hear, because I have I would say a lot of people put on a poker face. They knew the politics. They knew who might be gossiping or who might be judging them or whose parents might be doing this. And you go to school and you kind of play neutral with people you don't know. It's almost like the mafia. Like, I don't know that guy over there. We don't say nothing around him. It's kind of funny how that works, but being there a long time, of course, you're going to break some rules, because it feels like you're on Groundhog Day. You wake up, you're on post. You wake up, you're on post. You wake up, you're on post. So now you go, it's Groundhog Day. Today, on Groundhog Day, I'm going to light my bicycle on fire and see if I can jump in the pool with it or something to stimulate a new experience. And that's probably why a lot of that came about, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for me, I think was when a lot of the new kids came to, the base.
Right.
I think the big thing was drinking.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can do that anytime. Like, what's the big deal?
Right.
I remember family coming and visiting us, and then we'd take them to the beach, and we're all topless, and they're like, oh my God. I'm like,
right.
People, you could always tell an American, because the kids would be drunk the first weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And if you took them to the beach, they'd be like,
right.
Could control themselves. So I think for me, it was, it was natural. Like, oh, I'm going to go have a beer, or I'm going to have this. I'll never forget. There was 2 incidents with your father, and he was such a nice man. I had made the volleyball team, the varsity volleyball team, my freshman year.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a trip to Venice. And I know that, some of the names, they cannot come to me right now.
What grade were you in?
What grade was I in?
Freshman, 9th grade, right?
I was a freshman in 1983.
Okay. So you probably had Freddie Perkins around then. You probably had Barry around then. You had Mike Coley was there. The Coleys were there. I'm just taking
but a lot of the girls, so a lot of the volleyball team, and
Chris
it was also
Graham was there.
Team.
These are the guys I remember, but I'm doing that to make you remember the girls.
Yes. So a lot of the volleyball team girls were going on this trip is through the team club. So I remember my father coming up to me and saying, okay, listen, Roxie, I know you're going to drink. Number one rule, don't mix. I'm like, oh, sure. Yeah, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, don't mix. Whatever you're going to drink, stick to that drink. Stick to it to the end of the night. Have water in between, but do not mix.
What great advice from a dad. Oh my God. I never got that speech. Your dad's awesome.
So we go on this trip, and we left we left maybe at 3:00. We got there early. It was September. That next day we had practice, and there was a football game. So we get there, and everybody splits up, in their groups. And I'm kind of mixed in with the older crowd, younger crowd. And I want to be part of the group. So I go, get something to eat, and I have a little glass of wine. I'm, So I
Right.
get a little tipsy there. And then somebody from the group had bought Sambuca.
Oh, it's always the Sambuca. They got you too. I thought you made it through there unscathed. This is wonderful information. That's wonderful.
So I, someone gave me it and I'm like, oh, this tastes like licorice. I'm like, wow, this is really good. I don't know how much I drank, but it got to the point where I ended the trip for everybody.
Oh my.
Yes. They had to bring me, we had to leave. They
Mhm.
brought me to the hospital. I had to get my stomach pumped. The story doesn't end here. We did not have a phone. So guess who had to show up at my parents' house?
Who's that? My dad?
The police.
I was like, how's my dad involved? You brought him up earlier. I'm like, what was he
So
doing
they
there?
knock on the door. You know, back then they wore their brown uniform with the white the white cap.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget my dad walking in, and I'm sitting there on a wheelchair, you know, just messy, and I'm crying, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. He's like, okay, don't worry about it. We'll take care of this. He's like, tomorrow's going to be another day. Well, so I get home. My mom is Hispanic, and she's like, and I'm just like, I don't feel good. So he brings me, go to my bedroom, and he says, okay, here's the pot. Place your hand on the floor. Look at the light. And the room will stop spinning. So I would like two hands on the floor, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That morning, he wakes me up, you know, understand that we got back like what, at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. I was in the hospital, got home at 1. He wakes me up at 6. I'm not like, oh, ready to go. I was
Yeah.
so sick.
Yeah.
So he says, you have volleyball practice. And I went, what? Huh? He's like, get your stuff on. You got to go in and tell Coach Dempsey what happened, and you might get kicked off the team. And I thought, oh gosh. So I go, I look like a mess. I just pull my hair up. I don't, you know, you just, when you don't feel good, you just put anything on. And I walk in and everybody is silent. Like just, you know, you can hear the balls drop.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's like, and I see your dad with his hat, you know, his famous hat. And he always wore shorts. He always wore shorts.
And sweats. And he did wear
And
his
he
fair share
sweats,
of
but I
sweats.
mean, I think he was just always shorts, and he had really nice legs too. He was a great runner. I remember him running all the time. But anyhow, he looked at me and he had this little grin on his face, and he called me over, and I said, he goes, I already know what happened. He goes, get out there and start practicing. And I thought, oh my gosh. I didn't get kicked off the team, but I had to practice. After practice, my dad said, when you're done, the football team is playing, so you're going to walk over there and watch them play. And I was like,
wow.
Seriously? Come on.
Have a booster burger to top off that hanger.
It was my dad's like, if you wanted to be adult. And so to this day, right now, I cannot smell Sambuca or drink it. It just, for some reason, I remember that. So I can't do that.
So you were like one of those kids they throw in the closet with a carton of cigarettes and they quit the next day and never do it again. I get it. So it worked. So how long did you stay there, and how long before you came back to the States?
I graduated in 85. That year, I went to Portland, Oregon. I went to a 2-year school. And my dad just said, you're gonna, you know, you need to do something. And I didn't apply for any schools. I didn't think I really wanted to go. You know, you're at that age where I don't want to, I liked school, but
you wanted your dad's job. Dad, can I work for you?
Yeah, I was like, why do I have to go to school? This is such an easy job. Why do I need to get a degree to do this? So, you know, he goes, you need to figure out yourself. And literally I was just, you got to go. So I spent a year in Oregon, and, you know, it was hard for me because I went from Vicenza all the way to the other side of the world to a different, you know, area. It was rained all the time. It was a beautiful area. I mean, if you love to go outside and ski and run and bike, it's a beautiful, Oregon's beautiful. But it was hard for me. So I remember.
And back then it was like even more old school because it wasn't the most place. It wasn't as modern as it is now. Just
No.
big nature, big trees, big camping, big river, lake kind of country. I've been there. I know exactly what it's like.
So I lived by Beaverton. I have 2
Okay.
aunts out there. So I remember the first month was great. The second month, when it started getting gloomy and things like that, I was like, oh, I miss it. And I used to call home and I tell my dad, I'm like, I really want to come back. I mean, I'll go to school at the University of Maryland on base. I really want to come back. But my dad, and I'm really glad he did this. I'll be honest. He never, ever let me quit anything. Never.
Mm-hmm.
And that really instilled on me. And to this day, if I've moved on, I never quit. I've, resigned saying, hey, I've got this other job I'm moving to. So he really put that on me. So I finished the year. I came back to Italy in 86, the summer, well, yeah, the spring of 86. And I just lived there till 86 to like I want to say 90, 91.
Mm-hmm.
It
I
was a
saw
great.
you. I saw you because I was graduating 86. I came back in 88. So yeah,
Yes.
I'd seen you a couple times. So you that's why I asked. So you left in 90 back to the States?
Yes, 90, like 90, 91, those dates, I can't, as you get older and you know this, I can remember things, but sometimes the dates, everything kind of mushes together.
What were you doing there? Were you working on base? Did you have a job there or going to
I
University
did.
of
I
Maryland?
actually, I got a job working at, his name is Diego Tofani. He had a gym outside of base. And he had built a gym for his American girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked at his fitness center.
Oh,
And
wow.
I managed his fitness center and I taught classes on base and I was a lifeguard. So I did a lot of odd jobs. I officiated, anything to make some money. My dad was like, he made me pay rent. So I had to, pay for the car, the gas and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was something that I had to, I had to work and go to school.
Mm-hmm.
So it
Well,
was,
you lifeguarded, I lifeguarded, Rosanna lifeguarded. I think we all lifeguarded together at one point in time.
yes, we did.
You know?
And I
Yeah.
used to ride my bike. I used to ride my bike from Motorola. It was like 18 miles, I think. But, if you calculated it, it's probably further than that. I mean,
You know what? I'll calculate it for you just for fun. It feels like it was. So that's where I'm telling you where I thought my, let's see. What was it? What is the base now? Del Din? Yeah.
I'm not sure. But I used to ride I had to be at work at 9. So I'd have to leave the house by 7 and, I worked till closing and rode my bike back home. And I did that for a while. Didn't have a car. I didn't, what I did is I either rode my bike places or I knew the bus schedule very well.
Yeah.
And I make sure I had some money. Sometimes I'd get on the bus and I didn't have any coins. You're hoping there wasn't a conductor on the bus that would kick you off. You're like, oh gosh. Or you acted like you had something, and you kind of put it in so it looked like you did something because the bus driver would be looking.
Mm-hmm.
Or I would hitchhike or I would walk. I mean,
I know exactly what you're talking about. The old bus trick. Don't print on the ticket, flip it around. We had all kinds of little,
yes. I mean, you would just kind of, and there was times where I was like, oh gosh, I didn't, my mom said, always have money on you, I'm like, well, so I used to run to the front of the base. If I missed the school bus or a ride, I was like, oh my God, there was like a 6:30 bus, and you're running because the Villaggio, remember the Villaggio bus? It didn't come around my house until my sophomore year, the end of my sophomore year, beginning of my junior year. So I didn't have that, that opportunity to ride that bus. I had to catch the Italian bus. So I would be like, book it.
I know what you're talking about. So I just want to share with you, it is less miles than you thought, as were my 20-mile bike rides. I'm going to tell you, you want to know the real number?
What is it?
6.2 kilometers.
Really?
19-minute bike ride. to
further than that for some reason.
Laghetto di Marola. I'll show you. This is funny. I don't know if you can see. Do you have a big screen where you're at, or?
Yes, here.
Okay. Let's see. I'm going to share the screen here. This is funny. So look at this. Boom. Here's Lake Marola.
Yes.
And over here on the left is Caserma Ederle Education Center. So
yes.
I'm not even doing it from Villaggio. Villaggio's right here. So look at this.
Wow. Yeah.
And I thought I was going 100 miles myself, by the way.
I'm telling you, it seemed a lot further than that.
Why did it? Because we were good at running. We had great cardio. I ride a bike all day, run. None of that ever stopped me. You know,
oh yeah, I mean,
my parents were into running. They're like, we're going here. You know, and it's like, okay. You know.
I remember another incident with your father, and this one's funny. You know, I'm not that tall, so running, I was a sprinter, but I was fast my freshman year, and then my sophomore year just got a little slower. But anyhow, I remember my sophomore year, he was like, I'm going to put you in the 1600. And I said, what? I said, Coach, like, have you seen the girls that run this race? They're like super tall. And he's like, I'm putting you in. And I finished the race. I was last. The following year was my junior year. He said, okay, you know, tell me, you know, I was asking us what we wanted to do, what races. And I was like, I want to do the 200 and the 400. And he's like, I'm going to put you in the 1600 too. And I was like, what? And I was like, I'm not doing that. And he was like, what did you say? You're not doing it? You either have a choice, either do it or you're off the team. And I said, I guess I quit. So I went home. I told my dad. He goes, well, guess what? I guess you're going to be playing tennis. So I had to try out with the tennis team, and I played with Daniela DiTiccio. She was my partner. We played doubles together.
Danny, yeah, I was just talking to her.
I sucked, okay? Can I tell you? I sucked. My dad made me take lessons prior to going to school, 2 days a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I'd have to be up, leave our house by 5:30. My lesson was at 6 o'clock, and I'd finish up at 7. I'd shower on the base and go to school. But the following year, I did not talk back to your dad, and he did not put me back in the 1600.
That's funny. That's funny. The tennis, I mean, I was never good at it. My parents, that was one of their social hangouts, you know, over at when you first come in the base to the right. They later built an NCO club there, a little small one, an extended NCO club. Then they had the one that was over by the gym, of course. But yeah, that's where they had the softball fields too.
Yeah, that's what. And then also remember Bob Beard. I
remember Bob Beard. He was the Mac Daddy. You know, he was you know, Silver Fox always had some beautiful European girlfriend in his 80s. Oh, you know, I was like, what's up with this guy, playa?
He was the tennis coach. He was the golf coach. He was the skiing coach. I mean, he just he did it all.
He lived the life, and then he'd play tennis with my folks, and then I'd see him on the ski slope, and I'm like, nothing stops this guy. He's there to live. And
he is. And I remember because my mom took tennis lessons from him, and he used to, and my sisters too. Denise was a really good tennis player. She loved it. I didn't. To me, it was like, this is too hot out here. Oh my goodness. But Bob Beard used to say, the only thing you need in your car is when you're hungry is a loaf of bread and peanut butter. And that's what he ate like all day long, was bread and peanut butter.
I remember that.
That's all you need.
That was his diet. I don't know. It was some kind of special ketosis with carbs. I don't know. But I'll say this. As I was having a memory. This is before I left. I went and I was partying with my Army buddy. He was in the Army. I was a civilian. Over at Yeslo, and we ran into you, and you were with Scott Fell and Johnny Kohut, and you guys were camping there in Yeslo. Yes. Remember Yeslo? That place was wild. I loved it.
Oh my God.
I think Johnny still goes, by the way.
So yeah, that was I used to love clubbing. I mean, I
had no idea. Did it all the time myself. We were having this individual experience. Meanwhile, 5 of us are doing it in 3 different regions and 4 different towns, right? Where did you go? What clubs did you like in Italy? Did you go to Palladium or did you go?
I went to the Palladium a lot because it wasn't that far from my house.
Yeah, I went to it when I came back to visit because it was there, and Rosanna took me there, and it was like great. I loved it.
Her and I used to go there like there was one because she had graduated and stayed there also. So I
Like you guys were
remember one
co-lifeguards. You guys were training all the lifeguards too, probably.
yes,
Because I did
there
that
was
with your
one
first.
summer where
Yeah.
I was house sitting for this lady and she was gone I'd say a little over a month. So I told Rosanna and her brother Louis, I'm like, just come over. You guys can stay here. And so we used to go out to the Palladium like 7 days a week. I mean, we'd leave the house, we'd be all decked out, 11 o'clock at night, finish up at 4, or 2, go back home, crash, sleep, get up for work. I mean, I don't know how the heck we did that.
Well, she took me there with Louis.
Yes, Louis.
And Louis was funny because I don't know why, like he must have got teased or something on base, like he wasn't treated, like, hey, there's Louis, he's really cool. But when I saw him at the Italian nightclub, that was Fonzie. That guy was like, hey, ciao, bella, come stai? All of a sudden, his Italian side, because he was bilingual, right? When he went into his Italian culture, it's like he was 2 feet taller. I was like, and I was hanging out, I'm like, wow, Louis, you've really impressed me. Thank you for introducing me to all these pretty ladies when I was back on leave. Yeah.
He was an amazing young man. I don't know where he's at now. I tried to find him on Facebook. I don't know where he's at, but he was amazing. Young man.
You gotta catch up with Rosanna. You guys,
I would love to do. I would love to do another podcast with a couple other people from school.
Oh, for sure. I'd like to get her on. That'll entice her more. She's been watching these. A lot of people watch them. Some people are like, they have sales resistance, as I would call it from my old profession, right?
Well,
I don't know.
I'll be honest. When you asked me a couple months ago, I really wanted to, and I asked myself, I was like, just hesitant. I'm like, well, why am I hesitant? We're just going to talk about where I grew up, and I talk to people about where I grew up, and what's the fear I have, and I guess I don't know what that would be.
Good question, though. That's a good question because maybe you can help me answer it. I think people are worried because if I have a great show with somebody, they'll think that we recited it and we're competing. And all of a sudden, I might be talking to somebody that wasn't even the most popular kid in school. And we're having a great conversation. And the way it looks on video, they're like, oh, yeah, I remember Bill. He was really popular in the science class. No, he wasn't. But he was on this podcast. I'm just making an excuse. But I think it's a matter of perception. I do these podcasts with my friend. He's a coach for the UFC. He coaches world champion Khabib Nurmagomedov. So I do podcasts with him. He's just my buddy. He's a coach too. Look at me. I'm friends with a world famous coach, and I'm a coach's son. And you're in the coaching business. Like we can't get away from it. What do we have to do? Become dentists or something? But anyways, my point is that I've had a lot of experience with it, and I'm able to think, well, what's somebody watching this listening to? What are they interested in? If I'm going to listen to something, entertain me a little bit. It's not like you and I are going back and forth. What's your favorite stamp collection? Oh, I like the stamp with the wind. You're like, okay, I'm going to turn off. But yeah, just because we didn't hang, that's half the thing. But you were there too. I was there. We'd see each other in passing. We're probably going to different nightclubs is all it was. And like I said, I did go back and I did hang out with Rosanna. And her and Louis, they took me to the Palladium. I didn't have a car. My parents had moved over by Marola, I guess. Right. So we used to live over by the Palace Sport where the track was.
Yes, I know. Remember that. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a big change. Just come back like, oh, wow, new place. Cool. It was nice. Who have you seen since? I memean, you were there a long time. So you see the Christmas people and college people.
I went to the reunion that they had in Las Vegas. I really don't. I mean, there's a lot of people that live in this area. And I'll be honest, it's not that I don't want to see people. I'm just really busy with my family, my kids. I love being a mom. And my kids are growing up and I'm trying to
get as much of that in as you can because you know the value of what you have. So, you know how it is.
I'm sorry?
You know how it is. You're trying to get as much out of it, being in the moment, being present as you can with your kids.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you realize how precious that time is. You know how quick it comes.
Absolutely. And So I know Teddy Spittle's in this area, Marcus, Dina, Del Rosso's in this area. Gosh.
Norman Wimpy's up there too.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think David Dinches was in
David Dinges and his brother and his dad are all up there.
So,
you guys should go. You guys should meet up and talk over the fence and gas mask or something.
Actually, I mean, I wish they do. I mean, I know, you know, with this pandemic, but I wish they would do another reunion. But sometimes the days that they pick and the times they pick, it's like it was not always great for me. It was like in August, and I'm like, well, school's starting for my kids. You know,
it's not anybody's specific fault. It's like nobody's schedule is going to line up. You're going to get
exactly. So I was
you
just kind of like
2 years. You need 2 years of advertising, unless I figured that we could launch things quicker and locally quicker once I do enough podcasts. Once everybody's
absolutely.
Once everybody's reconnected, because you're looking at my profile, look at your profile. Oh, Roxie has nice kids. Oh, Roxie worked out today. Roxie ran 5 miles. Like, okay. That's my conversation with you for 10 years, just like using Facebook. It's not interacting like this, right?
No, it's not.
Right. And then we project. Well, oh, you guys look so happy. I'm having a crappy day. I don't want to look at your Facebook. It's funny how that works, because you could have had some huge bill and you look at someone else and they get a new car. You're like, what the hell? Life's not fair.
Oh, I mean, I had, you know,
in your subconscious, not consciously, this happens in people's subconscious, but go on.
I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, my life wasn't easy. It wasn't. It was not. You know, people always ask, you know, have I ever asked you if you could change anything in your life, would you change it?
Right.
And back in the day, I would say, oh gosh, yes. But actually, every heartache I had, every place I went, every person I met, I was supposed to meet them. They made me who I am now.
I agree.
So I wouldn't change a thing. I wouldn't change a thing. I mean, yeah, I mean, I didn't, it wasn't all cupcakes and, you know, but my dad was very positive. He was a very positive person. And I always look at the glass being half full, not half empty.
Right.
It's all how you look at it. Yes, this happened, but we got to move on. And I think that was something with the military, you know, okay, this is the problem. Let's do it. Let's work it out. You know, let's get it done.
Did you go into the military or no?
Oh, you know what my problem was? My mouth.
Oh, really?
My mouth was my problem. My dad used to say, you know, you need to think before you speak. And I wanted to, but then I thought, gosh, what happens if I'm under someone that I don't care for and I don't agree with them?
You're a natural, you should be an entrepreneur with your mindset. That's how I am. But I did it. I weathered through it. You know what I mean? I dealt with it. I did 6 years, but I understand where you're coming from. And I could see that being a track too. You're like, oh, I'm in the Army. Now I'm coaching the Army volleyball team. It could be, I could see that happening like yesterday. Mm-hmm. And next thing you know, you're a GS-15 running all the sports for the world of the military. Yes, that makes sense to me. But what's funny is like perception. Like, I'm going to talk with Len, and we didn't hang out that much, so we're just going to talk about that one time that the new Afy's burger came out, and we were all stoked to go get it, and the Booster Burger recipe. That's great. I like seeing that you partied, and I know what you went through by knowing Rosanna and by knowing you. But like, we're all like, you know, you might have had a boyfriend. So what happens when you get a boyfriend? You spend all the time with him. So you're not really going to this party this time. You guys might have a date, or you might be on a school trip. And so we were all kind of passing each other, depending what your experience was. Oh, I'm in band. I won't be home for the homecoming because we're going to be in Livorno having a competition. You know, that would happen. But did life live up to what you expected it? I mean, how much different did it turn out than what you expected? Because looking from Italy, I'm going to go become something in that big country. You know,
hear my dogs, they're crying. My husband must be home. Let's see. Hold on a second.
Yep.
No, nobody's here, guys. I don't know why you're crying. Why? No.
Then I come in.
Oh, they'll jump all over me. Yes. But no, I get it. Yeah. I mean, the friends that we made, I mean, there's a lot of, you make groups of friends. in you know, when we went to school, but we also integrated those friendships a little bit.
Well,
They kind of, I
we
mean,
all traveled. We lived in a foreign country together. You don't do that with your neighbors. You don't do it with
oh,
someone you met at the gym. You do that with that, and then you do it in your formative years. You can go back with some buddies that you met playing, you know, volleyball or tennis or whatever sports or, you know, family group activities that you do together. It's still
mhm,
not going to be the same because now you're telling them what it was for you and it's their
yes,
first experience, right? So it does kind of change. And I just think of the psychology because most people did, you know, they've done well. Either they have a happy family or they did good in business or, you know, they've kept in contact with a lot of people. You know, it's not who became a millionaire because they wouldn't be any happier, especially in COVID. What are they going to do?
no,
Where are they going to go without risking the chance of getting COVID? They didn't make
yeah.
a
When I
bulletproof
look at,
millionaires, you know?
but when I look at some of our students in our classes, I mean, you know, everybody seems to be doing very well. I mean, we all have probably a little bit of issues here and there, but it seems like
Of
a
course.
lot of people that went to Vicenza became, you know, did something with their life. They really, you know, and it's, I mean, I don't know if it's because it was a small school. We kind of knew everybody. The teachers were almost, not only were they our teachers, but they were our parents also. I remember Mr. Pallarito in basketball. I mean, when he used to call us up from the back of the bus and talk to us before a game, he was just the things that he used to say to me, and I was just like, the things that he saw in me, and you know, it bring me to tears sometimes. I was just like, wow. But I remember also in chorus where, remember they'd blow the whistle for recess, remember, and we'd all have to stand in line by
Right,
the
right.
we'd all have to stand in line, you know, and Mr. Bonanti would come out or Mrs. Wilkie, but Mr. Pallarino, he had that voice, and he had two types of voices. It was one that you better hurry up, and there was one caring one you could always tell. And I just remember sometimes when people wouldn't be listening or he'd get mad, he would yell in the back of my neck, the hair would stand up. I mean, I was like, okay. But he was just, I mean, they knew what we were able to do and they expected nothing else.
Right.
So a lot of those teachers, you know, I give credit to our teachers. I mean, Mr. Hakeem, he was always hard on me, always hard on me. And not for a bad thing. He was a good teacher, but he was hard on me. He would, you know, he expected more out of me. And you know, I could have given more. I just did the bare
You,
minimum.
but we were young and we were selfish. We wanted to hold that free time.
Oh,
What we
absolutely.
loved, you know, that little reserve. But you think about it, Roxie, when you come back to the States, and I talk about this in other podcasts, you tell some of your stories to your American friends. They're like, you weren't on the gondola drinking Sambuca with the volleyball team. That's BS. But it did happen. And well, not that specific incident, but you know, you were going to discos when you were 16, 17, 18. We all were. Over there. We had this freedom. We get to do grown-up things, be
Oh my gosh,
independent,
yeah.
find our way, adapt and overcome. And we've had to rely on it ever since we got back to the States because some people lived here, so they're used to it. They just grew up in the let's say the pot. The plant grew up in the pot. We grew up everywhere, you know. And
Absolutely.
where did you meet your husband? Where did you guys meet?
Well, just going back to one thing what you said about you know, in Europe, just things I did. Like I tell people, like when I lived in Italy and I first got my first car, I used to go out to eat, get clothes, and sometimes I'd have no money. They would write your name on a little black book.
Yeah, they keep an account for you. Yeah.
Yes. And
Mm-hmm.
I say,
Un
I'll
conto.
pay you next week. I get
Yeah,
paid next week.
right.
And I could go out to eat, I could get gas, you know, and back then you had gas coupons and gosh, they were like money.
They were.
Yeah,
I knew people that paid their rent with those gas
oh, I
coupons.
know.
They'd buy $25 worth of or $50 worth of coupons and pay their whole rent with it
Oh,
because
yes.
they were 10 times the value. The landlord was a gas station owner. So it's like getting 500 gallons of gas for 25 bucks. It wasn't gallons, but I'm just
Mm-hmm.
making that in today's time, right? It's like probably was worth $2,500 to the Italian. 25 bucks
exactly.
to us because we're
So,
subsidized.
I mean, there was times where I had no money, but I had some gas coupons, or I had no money and they put my name down in black little, book, and I'd have to go back and I'd have to pay it. Came
Yeah.
back to the States, like, you need a credit card. I was like, can't I just owe you?
Yeah.
Huh?
Put it on the arm. It's like, it's like, yeah, an account. Put it on the, yeah. That's New York too. New York has some of that, but you got to be in the neighborhood they see you a few times and they feel comfortable,
Yes,
you know.
yes.
But I totally understand what that is. So you go to Oregon, and then what states did you live in or settle in? I'm saying, I was
So,
trying to find
so
out.
I when I left Italy, I went, in 85 or 86, I went to Oregon for a year, came back to Italy, left in 90, and I went to Memphis, Tennessee, stayed with my sister for a little bit there, and then I went to Kansas, Fort Riley, Kansas. My other sister was there. And then at one point I was like, I need to find out where I want to go. And
Put on big girl pants. I got to go do it my way now. I've
yeah,
been doing it
so
their way because all those little, I understand you get all these sisters and you get places to go camp out. And I know I've heard other people that went to our school that went through this kind of thing too. I guess,
so I do you remember Mr. Les Parker? He
um,
was the Red Cross director,
I don't,
and Rosanna's mom worked with him also. She was the assistant. So
okay.
I I was like, well, where do I want to go? And my mom was like, well, my parents were like, well, I know that the Parkers are in South Carolina. So I was like, well, you know what? I don't know if I want to be. I was going to visit. So I gave Mrs. Parker a call, Kay Parker a call, and I said, hi, how you doing? I'll be coming through town. I wanted to stop by and see you. Her husband was my mentor in the Red Cross,
Oh, beautiful.
and so while talking to her, she explained that her husband had died like 2 months prior.
Oh, wow.
And I was just heartbroken. And my parents they were very good friends. And so at that point, I was like, well, you know what? I'm going to come by and see ya. And, so I left Kansas, drove my car to South Carolina and Charleston, South Carolina, and
Cool
actually
area.
moved in with her.
Cool area. I haven't been there yet, but I see a lot about it.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. So I moved in with her, and it was the best thing that ever happened. She needed help. I feel, I'm Catholic, I'm Christian, and I feel that God kind of made me go there. She needed somebody at that time,
Yeah,
and I needed to grow up a little bit more. Does that make sense?
that makes sense. Yeah.
So it was a great pair. I lived there for about a year, and we did a lot. I grew up a lot, figured out a lot about things for myself. I decided I wanted to go back to school and get my 4-year degree and in exercise physiology. I had 2 years of college. My parents were just moving back to the States in the end of 91, 92. And my dad was like, well, why don't you could live here, go to school, get a job, and you get rent free. I was like, well, gosh, that's a no-brainer for me.
Right.
So, but when you're out of your house, out of your parents' house for a period of time, how do you go back to
Right.
be home at this time? Where are you going? Ba 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 da da da. And I was like, oh, and it was really hard for me. So I met my husband. I had gone out to the insect club. A friend of mine was having a birthday party. They had people ate bugs. I did not eat bugs.
The insect club.
It was the insect club, yes. And they
Wow.
were like, come on, you can come. And I was like, you know what? I was a workaholic. I love working. I sometimes, working from home right now, I've got to step away. But because my job is in my house right now, it's hard to.
No, you
So
can do more. Actually, you might work more.
you do
Go ahead.
more. Absolutely. You do
Right.
more. I find myself cranking out stuff constantly. So a friend of mine, David Deblar, he was like, listen, Roxie, just come with me. And, I did not know DC very well. And back then we didn't have GPS. I used to literally, figure out how to go. I used to copy it on a copier. You're going to laugh at me. I made my own GPS. Then I'd tape it to my dashboard and I would highlight
I remember printing out Yahoo Maps. Are you kidding? You know, you get these pieces of paper, turn right, turn left, before you bought one for your car. And then
Yes,
they're like
I mean,
3 sheets. You're driving to LA from San Francisco where I
I
lived.
had paper. I mean, I used to tape it to the dashboard.
Right.
So he's like, just, come down and, meet us. I'm like, okay. So I remember going down and I parked in this alley that was just so dark. I mean, I'm surprised I didn't get kidnapped sometimes, okay? Because some of the stuff I did, I was like, oh my God, I think back and I'm like, how did I survive that? So went to this club and met up with my friends, and Dave Devilar brought my husband, and he wasn't setting us up. And he was like, hey, I brought a friend. And, when you're drinking, you meet people and you're not really in a good state of mind.
Right.
You're so I had just got out of a bad relationship. So I was like, I really, so he got my number and called me the next day. And he goes, hey, you want to go out to eat? And I was like, I'd rather meet you at Denny's and we can have coffee. Like, I want to be
Yeah.
so in my
Let's
brain.
let's neutralize it. Let's take away the romance and the pressure
Yes.
and the accelerated, like, which I experienced when I was single and online dating. I'm ready for a relationship right now. Are you ready? I'm like, no, back off, dude. Back off. You're rolling at me like a rock coming down the hill at 100 miles an hour. Like you're just, let's go. Like,
Exactly.
I don't know you. I don't know you. Jump in the car with a stranger. It might be a kidnapping, but right.
Let me tell you, when I lived in Charleston, let me back up a little bit. When I used to go on dates, I used to meet them there. Okay. And then when they said marriage or kids, I'd say I have to go to the bathroom and I'd take all my shit with me.
And go out the window?
And I would tell the waitress, give me 10 minutes because I would be out of there. I was like, oh no, I'm out of here.
Right.
So yeah, didn't want to get involved, didn't want to, I wanted to take care of me. I needed to be good for me. I needed to do for me. And so he called me up, my husband called me up and he's like, hey, so we went out on coffee dates, 3 of them. And by the first one, I said, this guy is it. He is it.
Right.
And we went on 2 other dates. And then he goes, well, listen, let's go out to dinner. And this is so funny. You're just going to laugh at this.
You're graduating in food, more serious food, more romantic food, but go on.
More romantic. So I had to actually put clothes, I did wear clothes, but, not leggings or shorts or anything like that. So I said, okay, he goes, well, I'll pick you up. And I said, no, I don't live that far from this place. I'll meet you there. So I walk in and I go to the bar and I'm thinking I'm going to see him at the bar. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, gosh, it's, 10 minutes went by. A guy goes, hey, do you want a drink? I'm like, well, sure. Yeah, sure. So I get a drink and like 30 minutes pass by. And I'm like, this guy stood me up. Let alone, he did not tell me that he had reserved a table and he was sitting in the back.
Oh, wow. So you're getting drinks from another guy. Really, really raising the price of possibilities.
Yeah. So I was like, this guy stood me up. We had 3 great lunch, lunch dates and everything. So I stand up. I'm like, I'm just going to go home. At the same time, I stand up and he walks out. We run into each other. And I was like, where were you? He's like, I was sitting in the back. I said, you never told me you reserved a seat. So that was another intervention of God. Like, I could have left at 10 minutes, at 15 minutes, but he held me there until we both got up. So I was just very blessed. So we started dating and then we moved in with each other. And that's all she wrote. We got married after dating for about 6 years.
Cool.
At that point, my dad was not doing very well. And he had retired, but he got really sick. Mm-hmm. And I was just back into school. I wanted to get my my degree in exercise physiology. I was going back to school and I stopped everything right there. And he moved in with us. My parents moved in with us when we were not married. And I was blessed plenty that he was able to meet my father. And
nice.
and meet the man that I was going to marry. I always dreamed as a kid, you know, as a young lady, a young girl, you always dream about, you know, you look at the pictures of everybody getting married and you want your dad to walk you down that aisle. So that was the hardest thing for me, that was my dream. I'm like, you know, your dad's walking you down that aisle. So I was blessed that I was able to meet my father. And, you know, I was blessed that he helped me take care of my father when he was dying. And then after my father passed away, my mom moved in with us and she lived with us till we got married. And then after we got married, so she was, she left, probably 6 years ago. She's living with my sister now. And it was really hard, because, you know, I was really close to my mom and my parents and all that. So that was really, really hard. But I was blessed that, you know, he was able to meet, my dad was able to give his blessing.
Nice.
And so, yeah.
That's beautiful. So and, you know, back to what you said earlier, how life gets in the way. We can crank ourselves into an oblivion of nonstop work. You know, America doesn't do la dolce vita. They don't slow down in the countryside and have a 7-course meal. They're like, hurry, give it to me, throw the microwave, gotta go, right? So Americans consequently work more hours than most Europeans.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And especially Italians. Italians build up like 6 months of leave every other year and a half. Like they're like paid to go on vacation. They might not make a lot, but they get paid to go on vacation.
Oh my gosh, yes.
It is a lifestyle, you know. But you gotta keep busy though.
When I worked for Diego Tofani, at his club, I mean, it was, you know, we didn't open the gym in the morning. I mean, we would open it like at 11 or 10,
right,
and then close it at 12, and then I'd open it back up at 3, and I'd work to 6, and then I'd clean up. And we had, I mean, it was just, when I came back to the States, I'm like, I have 30 minutes for lunch. What?
Right.
I was just like, and you're going to work on Sunday. And I was like, I was so used to having Sundays off. I was so used to that, having, you know, Sunday off. And living in Europe, I used to always, I'd go to church on base, but when I got my driver's license, my mom and I used to go to Monteverico, and that was a hike for us, but I loved going there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I used to go every Sunday. And so, you know, not having to work Sundays, it was like, oh gosh, you know, I'm working 7 days a week now.
Yeah, you got to remember, but it's like you can justify it like I'm stuck at home.
Yeah.
Right? And here's the thing. I do believe that when people retire, a lot of people pass away because they've lost their sense of purpose, their reason to live. I have a friend, an Italian friend who I met in California, who owns a men's suit store. And he's in his like upper 60s. I know if he quits working, he's done. He has to keep working. You know what I mean? He can't sit at home. He doesn't know what it's like to sit at home. He can only watch so much Netflix and eat so much food. And then what? So it's important. It is important to have a sense of purpose. I want more people to reconnect. I want more people to reconnect from the podcast. Who would you like to see on here that you haven't seen?
You know, let me see. Leilani Rosario was one of my good friends also. I'd like to see her.
Her and John were supposed to come on together.
Yeah, I used to hang at their house all the time. I remember going to their house, spending the night, and Saturday morning would come and we were like eating dinner in the morning, rice and fried, it was steak, and I'm like, it's 8:00 in the morning, but they're Guamanians and that's the way they did things. I was like, okay.
Yeah, I'll take it. Right.
I'd like to see Zeta, Zeta Rosa. You know, she has the same last name as me.
Yeah.
Hinton. It's kind of funny because when we went to the last reunion in Vegas, she was supposed to go, and they were like, "What's your name?" I'm like, "I'm actually Roxie Urner, but you know, maiden name is Urner." Then Hinton, she goes, "Well, your sister's not here yet." I'm like, "What are you talking about? My sister with me." And I was like, "Zeta's not here." I'm like, "No, we're not sisters, but we had the same last name," which was really funny, really kind of funny.
That is funny. The Hinton brothers were out looking for Vicenza girls. That's all I know.
Yeah.
Even though they might not even know each other. The Hinton family. Yes. Let's expand on that. But
so, I know that Johnny was on. I
Right.
like to see him. He was always just a ball of fun. Always a ball of fun. Um, you know who I mean, Paul Jerome also I liked a lot. He was grew up with my sister. Jenny Pallarito, she's a doll. I think her sister is I think a teacher too in Naples, isn't she?
Possibly. You know, my brother would know better than I. He was closer to them because he was in the same grade as Jamie. So
Gotcha.
he kind of came tighter with them. Rosanna's one that I have in the books that I want to get on
Okay,
for
I'd
sure.
love to see her also. I'd love to see her. Um, gosh, who else? I'm trying to think.
Which ones have you seen? You've seen Barry. Have you watched a few of them? Or
Yes,
I know you're busy, but you can
Barry, I
listen
saw
to them in the car.
Andre. I saw Barry, I saw Andre. What a nice guy. I love that one. He was so kind.
Do you know?
And
Yeah.
boy, that boy could run. I remember. And it was funny because when he was talking about his lip moving, I remember that. He used to run so fast that his lip would move. It was Chris Summers. I liked Chris Summers a lot.
Yes, I've seen him since Vicenza.
He was
Him,
phenomenal.
I met him in Les Rayford in Arizona about 7 years ago.
Okay. The Ratcliffes.
I've had them on, but not
Oh,
Keiko.
really?
Yeah, you got to see that one. There's John and Paul,
Okay.
and they've switched places. Now John's the chatterbox and Paul's the quiet one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's weird.
Right. Stoic. What happened?
Yeah,
But
what happened? I
there's
mean, I didn't talk much. I think in high school, I was a watcher. I didn't talk much. I was, nervous. I think you find your footing once you start to leave or you test things out on your own.
well, that's the
Now,
thing. When you came back, you would take some, shots and do some things that you wouldn't do in Vicenza. Let's
Mhm.
here's a funny one. Well, you were just talking about the dating life, right? Well, nobody on post is watching you now. You're meeting somebody. You don't have all the same consequences or judgment or gossip mill of the small pace. Looking at who you're picking out as a date.
Mhm.
Judgment, whatever, even though they weren't loud and not like Facebook and Twitter. I'm speaking to this generation, but you always felt like
Well, back in the day,
you're
let's
gonna
back
watch.
up a
I
little
get a
bit.
rep to protect. You remember that saying
Back
for the
up just a
movie?
little bit. We did have Twitter and Facebook. Those were the notes, remember? And you
Oh,
fold,
the slam books, right?
the book, our notes, and then we
Right.
would fold them in triangles. And my goodness, and it was just like you start from the top of the page, and there'd be a conversation on that page, and you were like, God, I hope if somebody found that page, you were just like devastated. Okay.
Right. Well, I mean, there was a lot of things there that were great, and there's some things that were tough, and then there was the poker face we all played at school. Like,
Yes.
you know what I mean? And that's what the podcast is like. Who is Roxie? This is how Roxie saw it, and I mean, you were there not as long as me, but almost actually you were there as long, if not longer,
I
because
was
you came back and did the
You were
extended
much
work.
younger. You were when I
Yeah,
came back.
I was one year younger than you.
Yes. So you were in middle school. I mean, when I was
Right.
in elementary school, when did you get there then? What year?
72, 73, I think.
Yeah, you were. I was there. I was. But we didn't. We were little, and I don't.
I heard your dad's name all the time, DYA, and the Marcuses, Frank Marcus,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
And then there was another guy, Mick Workman. Remember him? Did he work with them? Mick
I don't
Workman.
remember. I don't remember him.
Okay, I thought he was doing some of that stuff too. I don't know, but
I mean,
you're
I have to say, I mean, I'm one thing I'm terrible at names, remembering names. I remember faces, not seeing people for 20 something years. You just you remember events, and so it's I mean, but yeah, it was the best experience. I mean, I'm hoping this year my girls made the Maryland state team, Maryland soccer team. So I'm hoping that we're supposed to go in the summer to play, and we're actually playing in Vicenza outside.
that'd be cool.
So hoping my oldest did that when she was in ninth grade. She made the all-star team. So we went and we traveled from Milan to Venice to Pisa to Rome, and then we flew
Beautiful.
out with soccer. And then the twins, we're going to be in the Venice area, and that's going to be in August. So it all depends on this pandemic, what happens and
Right.
if we're able to go. So yeah, so I want to take my girls and my husband and show them where I grew up. And I know it's changed a lot. I mean, when I was
Would it be his first time there, your husband?
yes, it'd be
Okay.
his first time there. I took him to the UK a while back, and with you always make plans, you always like, I want to go back to school, but then we had children.
Right.
It just, there's one thing after the other. So that's one thing I really, this year that was like on my bucket list to kind of bring them, because now my kids are getting older, and you can spend that money and not feel it's going to waste because they're older. When they were little, 6 years old, they don't appreciate that.
Yeah, you're not going to get the luxury suite at Disneyland for your 1-year-old who's just seeing one big hallucination around them.
Yeah, I'm like,
and you're like, hey, we spent the extra $800. We could have taken 2 vacations with that.
Absolutely. So right now they're old enough to appreciate that. So that's what I'm kind of hoping that that's the case, that we can go in August. And
Cool.
I'm trying to set up something with work so I can go and still make some money while I'm there. And
you got to look up Johnny. He's the PE teacher on post.
I know I can't, his brothers, my dad coached his brothers.
Wow.
Yes. And Johnny went to school with my sister, Sandra. So that's how I met Johnny. Johnny used to change my diapers. He used to come to our house all the time. He was like a brother. He was always at our house. I remember going to his mom's house, Lucia. That woman could cook. And actually, you know what? I had your mom as a teacher too. Remember when she taught French?
Yeah. Doing some substitute teaching there. Yeah.
And
we're all intermingled here.
What now?
We're all intermingled
yes.
Especially you and I, because we're there a long, long time. So was my brother, the Richies, the Millers. There were certain people that were the long-term people.
Yes, Gina Miller. I went to school with Gina Miller. I mean, she was phenomenal. We actually knew her when we were younger because both of our dads were involved in football and coaching. Right. And her older brother, Troy, actually, I want to say, played with my dad. My dad was coaching Bolzano Giants at one time. So he coached baseball in Giovanni di Piediceto, which is in Bologna. So he coached them. They were the Yankees. Did
your dad work with Bobby Davis? Dino's brother, Andre's brother?
Actually, no, because Bobby Davis played, I think with Parma. It was a different team. He didn't play with my father. I think he played with Joe Bonamego, because Joe Bonamego was also coaching there.
Yeah.
And so my dad coached in Bolzano.
Okay, and, Bolzano Jets or whatever they were.
The Giants.
Giants, okay.
So yeah, they actually just came out with a book. My dad's in it. It's called Touchdown: The American Obsession.
Gotta check it out. It's
called The American Obsession Touchdown by just Gerald Gems. So so my dad's in that book talking about how they started the football and things like that. So yeah, I remember when Derek and Teddy, they were in that commercial.
Right, for the moped.
Yes.
And they were doing their modeling with the, but they're like, you're good looking guys, but we need to cover that up a little, put on those pads and the helmet.
Well, they had the long hair. They had the long hair is coming back. I mean, I remember they had long hair, the guys back then.
Oh yeah, Derek had it out to here. It was like an old collar at the disco. The big triangles hanging out, but that was his hair. Kind of like my hair. Yeah.
So, but I actually talked to Marcos Parkins,
Oh, Mark? Yeah.
Yeah, I talked to him about 3 weeks ago. He sent me, we actually are friends on Facebook, and he called me up via Facebook, and we just started chatting, and I just remember you guys were 2 peas in a pod. You guys were like
double trouble.
Thing 1, thing 2, Minion 1, Minion 2. You were like,
yep.
You guys were not bad. I mean, I think you guys pushed the envelope, but
hey, we weren't stealing, mugging, or hurting anybody.
No.
So those are the things I consider to be worse. Just because you're partying and having some fun.
Did you?
So is a lot of other people, but we're going to decide to judge this one, but not that one.
But
You
do you
know?
know that? Do you watch the show Ridiculous?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You guys remind me of them.
That's a great
Because you
analogy.
guys just, I mean, you did things, but it was nothing malicious. It was always fun. And
It's
you
true.
never did anything bad. I mean, like, you know, to hurt somebody. You guys were just, and always, I remember Marcus, you guys always had a smile on your face. And I knew when you guys were smiling, you were up to something.
Yeah, we might have,
Something is
who
up.
knows what we were doing.
Exactly.
We might have spotted a keg of beer on the North 40 that the the Oktoberfest crew left behind and forget to pick up, and we're rolling it to the back of his Lincoln Continental. That would be something. Maybe you'd see that look.
I can't
Oh,
remember
yeah.
his parents. His parents had a big black car.
Yeah, we used to drive around in that thing.
I remember with the windows, and they had tinted windows. Did they have tinted windows?
Yeah, that was like the beast of a car.
That was like I mean, it was like
Yeah.
a lowrider. You guys would come in, and
Yep.
it was just this black car, and you guys, yeah, I remember you guys driving that car.
We would wear blue football jerseys and tell the Italians that we were the Dallas Cowboys, so they'd buy us free drinks.
See,
It was always great to do that one. That was the mischievous move, but they liked it because they get to meet the Dallas Cowboys. Because how could they not be? I mean, they have a huge Lincoln Continental Mark V.
Exactly.
It's like 3 times the length of a Fiat. They're like, what is it? Well, they're asking me what kind of motor. I'm like, 16-cylinder jet engine. I'm not sure. It's a huge motor, man. It's not a Fiat. And they're like, really? I'm just making stuff up. But hey, they get to have the excitement. If I'm selling them a dream, that's all good. But it's good. It is good to see you and see how life has changed. And I know other people are going to listen to this and they're going to pull different things out of it than the conversation you and I just had with each other, how our brains are working here. And you'll find that if you listen back to it, you'll hear things about yourself. You're like, whoa, because
you just opened so many doors, so many more doors of that, just the floodgates. It's like, open it and you're like, memories are coming back. And, I mean, yeah, I do truly believe we were all blessed to have that experience, all of us.
Right.
We were very blessed to be there at that time and, have all those experiences that no other person, I mean, nobody's ever going to have those kind of experiences that we had. Nobody.
You can't. And that's when you realize you lived a very unique life. Some people peak later in life. They become a movie star when they're 30, but then that's a quick run. It's a 2-year, 3-year existence. They say nobody gets more than 15 minutes of fame, but it's meted out over a 3 or 5-year career or 10-year career when you're in the top of the charts. That's your fame day, right? But as far as life experiences, everything else was work and building after you leave school. There we were living, and then we get chances in between to live, and it is about experiences. So if you sat at a desk for the last 40 years, I hope you liked it.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean,
you know what I mean? You want to live free or die. That's what the license plate is from New Hampshire.
The things that we did, catching the train to Yazelo, I mean, we did at 15 years old, we were doing things and going places, that no normal 15 or 16-year-old kid would do, going to play basketball, in Rome and leaving on a Thursday and seeing the Vatican. And I mean, that's like, I mean,
no one else got that chance. You realize that you could have that bring it up at a dinner table. Now, if your sisters are there, it flows because everybody's been there.
yes.
But if you're talking to some people that you met locally that never been overseas, you're talking to them about your trip to Mars.
Oh my God, yeah. They're like,
bizarre.
huh? Like what? Like
Right.
really? I'm like, yeah. They're like, no. I said, I used to go out, I mean, clubbing and drinking. I mean, I was not an alcoholic or anything like
No,
that.
a 1 or 2 kind of thing. And like,
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, you went out with your friends on Saturday, on a Friday night after school, and then we'd meet up and see Friday night was actually the movie night, always at,
Post. Yep.
And Saturday, you'd go out, or you'd go out to eat that Friday night early and then hitch the bus and go to the movies. Saturday was movie night or bowling or something like that, or hang out or take the bus around. So yeah, I mean, it was it was great. I'm very, very blessed and very, very lucky to have had that opportunity. Very lucky.
Me too. And it's been wonderful having you on. And I want more
Thank
people
you.
to reach out to you and actually answer them back. Because the thing is, otherwise we're going to wait 10 more years are going to go by. We have really not that much to do. I put that funny thing about Homer going in circles.
Well, now that you
in
live
there.
in this area, North Carolina, we go to the Outer Banks every summer.
Do
Every
you?
summer we
That's
go.
where I live.
You
Yeah.
live in Outer Banks, what part?
I live in Kill Devil Hills.
No kidding.
Yeah.
When did you move there?
Yeah.
When did you move there?
About a month and a half ago.
Okay, because I go to Corolla. I used to say Corolla, and they're
Corolla?
like, no, we're not.
I call it
We're not a
Corolla.
car. We're a place.
So.
So we go there every summer. We were actually thinking of purchasing a place on the sound side, because we go there every year, and I really like the sound. We looked at the sound this past year, but we'll have to, you know what? You are the one that kind of maybe put this spark underneath us, and we should try to get all together, coming up after
Well,
this.
I knew that I wasn't the only person that wanted this, but some people needed to be reminded of it. And why shouldn't we all have each other towards our retirement, or not retirement, but our golden years of flexibility and income? You know what I mean? Why should we not be able to do it now? Because
Absolutely.
everyone else is, the more you chase forward, if you're driven, you leave a lot of people in your wake. But the people with the same foundation, they'd want to hang out, and you have a really cool story to tell where, oh, it's Bob from, Chuck from the office, Cindy from the office. Hey, what's up? Well, we talked already. Okay. There's no depth to that. There's no, the life experience that's been so unique to you is shared amongst your alumni.
Well, I
And
do feel
different.
that it's like a friend that you haven't seen in a while, but we just picked up where we left off like
Right.
50 years ago.
Right.
And those memories, and I'm pretty sure with everybody that I remember the reunion, you just pick up where you left off, and you just talk about yourself, and I'll have to say, you can hear it when you interview everyone, Lenny. I can hear it in everybody's voice how happy they are, how excited they are to talk about the experience and to share that, not only with you but with all of us. You can just
No, I want them to be. It's not, this wasn't so much a popularity contest. People only knew me because I lived there forever. That's only up to someone like you, me, the Millers, or one of the Richies to start this thing. I'm like, well, I already do it, so I'm going to do it. And then I told my brother, why don't you add some episodes with your peeps, because you stayed there 3 years longer than me, and you have other people that you met, and I don't want to leave them off. So I can probably reach from the mid 70s to about 87. But I could also go on here with somebody I never met. I can do that too. But it just depends. Like today, I didn't have all my coffee, so I'm less rah, 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 you know what I mean? But
well, you know what? Also, who would be very interesting that just made it big too is also Chris Cavoli, another great person who
I would like to have one of the generals on here, or one of the admirals. That would be fun.
I would love to see. I mean, he was always just funny guy in school, always. But he'd be another great, interesting person to kind of have. But anyhow,
I'm not too hesitant to ask anybody, and that's not the problem. I just know people are busy at certain things. Like if they're overseas and if they're overseas,
busy, but we're working from home. Some of us,
right?
I mean,
I agree. I don't know if anybody's too busy, but some things might be, like security reasons, like not a good time to go on a podcast while this thing's going on in this country or something.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
That's what I think about. Some people have some security or high level military jobs. I'm like, well, when the time comes, we'll get to it, right? But for most people can come on here. So I really want to thank you for coming on, Roxie. You're still awesome. You still look the same. And
thank you.
I'm glad you've opened your online gymnasium and everybody gets a free membership.
The same I did start an online program. So I teach probably 4 to 5 classes a day with managing.
Awesome. Good way to stay in shape.
So, well, thank you. maybe you can join with one of my classes.
I'll be there.